am Bledsoe. I am a research hydrologist at Western Kentucky University and serve on the advisory council for the Mammoth Cave Biosphere region in Kentucky here in the United States. On the call with us today is also Clayton Lino of Mata Atlantica Biosphere Reserve in Brazil, is one of our CaveMAB coordinators, and also Daria Kranik from, apologize for my pronunciation there, Daria, from Karst Biosphere Reserve in Slovenia. They are, our founding, our coordinators here and helping make all this happen and putting the network and kind of getting the network started. So again, just to give you a little bit of a spiel here on who we are and what we've been up to as well. Sorry, dealing with a few technical issues here right away. But I will say that that CaveMAB was formed we came together in 2018 under the guidance of Mata Atlantica and the Karst Biosphere Reserve there in Slovenia. And we really wanted to, currently we're comprised of 13 biosphere reserves around the globe across 11 countries. And we have 4 partner organizations, including the International Union of Speleology, the International Research Center on Karst in Guilin, China, the International Geographic Union, Karst Commission, as well. And most recently, our colleagues here down in Mexico at the Universidad del Caribe through the Great Mayan Aquifer project at the time. Of course, we invite, all new, potential members. If you're working in a biosphere reserve or you're doing research or anything like that, please check out our webpage. That's cavemab.com and can learn a little bit more there. We're a network that we're just trying to connect people from around the globe that are working in these biosphere reserves or biosphere regions. And again, here's just a little a map of our range at this point. I think what is important for us all to think about is that, with biosphere reserves or biosphere regions, this is really about, what we're trying to get to is how people are living on these landscapes. And we all know in cave and karst environments that we're facing particular challenges that might not be around in different settings. And of course, being a multidisciplinary network, we want to address social, education, cultural, and scientific challenges that focus on the protection and conservation of both biological and our cultural diversity. And so that we're developing, economically in an environmentally sustainable way. And so really our biosphere regions, our biosphere reserves are kind of living laboratories. We're supposed to be a model for ways to do it in other places. And so this is why, we're coming together to share experiences so that we can learn from each other how people are doing this across the globe, and also spark creativity and ways that we can address challenges in our own areas locally. And again, just to remind us that, we are here together for caves and biosphere reserves in the network. I will say, I think that like one more comment before we go on. I'm very excited to introduce Ana Silas today from the Universidad del Caribe. She's in the Alternative Tourism and Heritage Management program or department there. I had the pleasure of, we've had the pleasure of working together this year through a recent exchange. had some, Anna was here for a couple of weeks learning about Mammoth Cave and some more detailed hydrology work. And then we were able to do an exchange and have a symposium and again, do sort of what we're doing today and sharing experiences, learning from each other, and looking for ways to collaborate and move forward in that way as well. Anna is an archaeologist and coastal oceanographer, as in working in the Yucatan. And as a researcher of karst landscapes, you know, she works with a variety of stakeholders, which I'm really excited to hear this today, because I think it'll give us a different perspective as well, and how we can really bring people together and all of our partners together to approach the protection and management of water resources. So what I'm going to do now, if there aren't any other comments from Daria or Clayton at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Anna so we can hear from her, and then allow us plenty of time for questions and discussion at the end. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I am very thankful to be here sharing this space and these minutes with you. And I hope we can actually get to interact after my presentation. I expect questions and comments. I'm very interested in that. And I'm going to share my screen just to okay. You can actually see it, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, as Leanne mentioned, my name is Ana Celis. I am from Mexico, and I am affiliated to the Universidad del Caribe, which is a very recent university located in Cancun. It has only 22 years old. And they just opened 2 years ago a program related with alternative tourism and heritage management. This area of Cancun has been basically developed around tourism, as I'm going to present in a few minutes. This was built from nothing, but it is very recent that we are having educational opportunities for the youngest in terms of getting them prepared for to get new approaches towards our environmental and cultural resources. So in this case, I'm going to present a topic about our urban groundwaters located in this city of Cancun, which ironically are not very well known, are not being monitored. So we are lacking a lot of information about our only water resource in the city, in one of the very world-known cities. So first, as a start, let's put us in context. We are located in the country of Mexico and in the Yucatan Peninsula. Here in the red square, you can see on the southeast, the peninsula of Yucatan, where for a long time it has been recognized as a very important groundwater source for the world. As it is recognized by UNESCO, almost 25% of the world population depends on these waters. But also the Yucatan has played an important role on the scientific and cultural realm in terms of what has been found in these underground waters. The Yucatan Peninsula is basically composed of very recent deposition of limestones and dolomites, and it has two main characteristics that predominate in its geomorphology. One is located on the northwest side. I'm not going to talk a lot about it. It's located in another state, which is Yucatan, which gives name to the whole peninsula, and that's named the ring of Cenotes. And the other feature is located on the along the coast of where Cancun is part of the state of Quintana Roo. And this is called the Holbox fracture. And this is a fracture that actually drains most of the water that runs from the inland into the ocean. And it's a very important key geological feature of the Yucatan. And it is still not really well known. The most important features that tourists and also local people recognize as part of the geology of this area are the so-called cenotes. That this word comes from the Mayan cenote, which is a sinkhole, and it's actually a body of water that has a certain kind of contact with the surface. In the last century, in the 30s of the last century, Hall proposed a typology based mostly on the morphology. And this is how most of the local people recognize these features as a jog shape, a vertical wall, a form of aguada, and a cavern shape that is very important in tourist in the tourist industry. These cavern forms are more developed in a horizontal way, and most of them are connected to other caves. But as the time passed, after the 1930s, obviously, there has been more information coming from different researchers, national and also people from abroad that have come and studied these kind of features. And now we know that there's a very important connection of the cave systems that actually have made the second largest known cave system in the world, which is Cancun. And also we all today recognize that along the Quintana Roo coast in this state, there is a very important influence of the tides of the ocean dynamics. And there is a very important presence of a halocline that interacts in geology, in biological, in the biological cycles, seasonally or stationally in these cenotes. And also now we know that the sedimentation processes inside of these water bodies are very important for the ecology. One of the first steps when these systems are converted into a tourist place is that the sedimentation is stopped, because sedimentation is not beautiful for tourists. Sediment present or sediment floating, no, in the water column is not well appreciated. So one of the first processes that is stopped and actually finished at some point is the sedimentation, which is part of the new characterization that Beddoes and other authors have proposed to categorize or create a typology of these cenotes. And this is very important to understand, because as we have been moving to understand more processes that are being part of the hydrology and the geology of the area, we are now understanding in what level the Anthropocene is changing these natural features. This Caribbean karst has also become very, very important for the paleoecology reconstruction of the area, and also as a cultural area for the whole continent. Now, different groups of researchers have found evidences of megafauna in the cave systems, but also evidences of the first human settlers of the American continent. In this case, I'm showing the skull of Naya, which is a human skeleton founded in 2014, and that dates back to 12 to 13,000 years old. And all this is very recent. I'm talking that the exploration of these systems started in the 1980s, but actually having all this kind of technology for diving in rebreathers, as these divers are doing, is more recent, obviously. So in terms of the characterization of the underground ecosystems, we know that the cenotes, the caverns, and the cave systems have been the result of at least 3 different processes that are part of the nature of this karst environment, which are the dissolution, the collapse, and the construction. as Beddoes and other authors showed in the last figure. But what is happening now is that as part of the tourism, all these processes are being accelerated, and changes have become part of the normal of what the locals accept as part of the development for tourism. But we all didn't know a lot about Cancun when this was developed. It can either be that we can either agree if Cancun was designed by a computer algorithm or it was designed by human minds. But what we know is that in the 1970s, it was projected as a very, very exclusive tourist destination. As you can see in the pictures on the left, there was pretty much nothing in this area. It was a sandbar that has been filled, obviously, to create the space, enough space to build a lot of hotel rooms. And this is the kind of flyer or propaganda that existed in the 1970s. In English, it says, this is Cancun. This is where the Mayans used to spend the summer 1,000 years ago. And now you can leave this world. This is the kind of information that used to be brought into the world to start promoting touristically this area. Obviously, now we know that Mayans were not only 1,000 years ago here. We know that prehistorical humans were here more than 13,000 years ago. But as you can see also, another characteristic in this picture is that there is not much space to where we can find fresh water. Now we know that in the lagoon that you can see on the corner, on the top of the picture, on the top corner, that's a lagoon, and there are small sinkholes inside of this lagoon. But the accessibility obviously was very, very hard. No, it was not easy. Along the bar, there's no water, fresh water available. And this picture shows a closer image of how Cancun looks like today. We still see the same sandbar, but now it's overloaded with hotels. We have pools, we have golf courses, we have the reef with a lot of activities going on. And so this is the picture of what most of the local people, which I am focusing on in this presentation, think about Cancun. But also Cancun has at least two different stories. If we say the history of Cancun on the hotel zone is one, and this is where everything started. This is what the reason why the city of Cancun started to develop, because people that used to be the first workers arrived to work for the hotel zone, but they never lived actually in the hotel zone, they lived in the city. And at some point around the 2000, the growing of the city just surpassed the proposed line of growth that is life of growth that is shown in the dash blue line on the figure in 2006. So this is 2006. Now we are talking about 20 years, almost 20 years later, we are overgrown. So most of the urban problems in Cancun are related with this accelerated growth. There has been no limit to growing based on the growing and growing of tourism as the pretty much only industry that we depend on. But as Cancun started as a project in the 1970s, almost 10 years later, groups of cave divers started to enter in these systems in order to just explore. Some of them started to map, and up to the day of today, just south of Playa del Carmen, which is a more recent town developed in the Mayan Riviera, that is called, we have more than 1,500 kilometers of cave systems known. And this is where Tacactun, that is shown here, is located, the second longest cave system just after Mammoth Cave. And well, actually the first one, if we count only the drowned sections. And as I have mentioned before, we have an occupation, or at least a use by fauna or by humans, of more than 12,000 years. But still, in this area from Playa del Carmen to Tulum, all the development is following pretty much the path that started with Cancun. So I'm wondering why Cancun groundwater should matter to the most to the recent population. If we review the plans of construction of Cancun and how it was designed and how it has been developing, we can see that there has never been a plan to secure water, not for the locals, not for the tourists. We are in a very I don't know the word in English, but we're in a very good area where nature seems to be good with us. But this has to have a limit, and this is what is showing in certain circumstances that I'm going to show later on. And as I mentioned, the same path that Cancun followed is being followed now by the most recent developments. And I'm talking from Playa del Carmen to Tulum, which is called the Mayan Riviera. These two cities that I just mentioned are the cities with the highest growth rate in Mexico. They just change between years, but they are the highest growing cities in Mexico. And Cancun has almost get to 1 million inhabitants. And we have today more than 120 hotel rooms. All the water that is available for tourists and for locals is groundwater. So we really need to start focusing on ways to know first, to understand, and then to protect and take action towards the water security, secure water for this city and the inhabitants. But the ecosystem services have been recognized to the cenotes. In the state of Yucatan, which is the neighbor state in the Yucatan Peninsula, created this chart with the ecosystem services that cenotes provide to the people. Here they are mentioned, the provision services, the regulation, the support services. But I want to take the next minutes to focus on the cultural services, because the non-material benefits that the people receive from the cenotes seem to be focused only on the experiences for recreation. And this seems not good to me. In terms, if we are conscious now that this is our only water resource for life. So I believe that this chart and the way that the cenotes are being valued in the non-material sense is very limited, because it is not taking in account the way that different stakeholders that now use or depend on the cenotes or the groundwater in the city or around the city have built a relationship not only based on recreational terms with the water. And this is what I'm going to show. Oh, this is a picture of how our institutions, most of our institutions, especially the tourism dependencies, think about cenotes. Water for recreation. Water for recreation is okay. This is a tourist destination in a tropical weather where people likes to spend time in the water. But the thing is that if we make a very quick analysis of this, most of these cenotes that are available for recreation are located in the tourist area. In the local area where I showed you, the city of Cancun, we don't have this kind of spaces. So we could, in fact, get a little bit involved in a discussion about maybe inequity in the use of this or in the availability of these benefits. And I'm not going to get into that discussion because that will be another kind of presentation. But I just want to mention that in terms that it seems that the conception of the groundwaters for recreation is only focused on the tourists, and it's lacking a vision towards recreation, but also water security for people that actually live all the year in the area. So I asked myself how to make these urban groundwaters visible and valuable, and for whom and with whom can I count? This is a map of the city of Cancun, and these dots, red dots, are the location of some of the cenotes inside of the city. They don't look as the previous picture, obviously, but I will show you some pictures of them. We have we did this with some of the students of Universidad del Caribe that knew about cenotes located in their neighborhood. And then we went to each of them to just make a quick characterization of some of them. We are planning to start focusing on building or understanding, sorry, the relationship between the neighbors and the cenote. This is going to be another part of the study. But these are pictures of how these cenotes look like. Some of them are covered with vegetation. No, some of them have been part of a municipality program of a cleaning, very much related with political campaigns. Some of the cenotes are clean, but there has never been like a focus on building a relationship between the neighbors and the cenote in order to actually keep the space clean and valuable. We have evidences of eutrophication in many of them, and this makes the people not like them a lot. But also in the picture on the bottom, on the right side, this is proof of an intervention from locals, from the neighbors, that decided to build a water pump in the cenote in order to oxygenate the water, circulate it, and make it look prettier. But this was something that was done independently. I had the opportunity to speak with the person that made the installation, and he said that he invested his money to do this, and he saw that many of the people, the neighbors and the children, used to go around. They don't get in the water. They don't take the risk, but they actually like it. So this is where I'm moving forward. I don't think that everybody wants to get in all the waters, but everybody has a reason to put a value on them. So I believe that the groundwater management in Cancun, especially the waters that are in the urban side of part of the city, are moving towards more complex scenarios. Tourism is not going to stop. In fact, it is growing towards different directions. It's growing vertically more than horizontally. But we are facing very different scenarios that are going to be changing with time. We will have less control over these scenarios. So that's why we need to actually start to work on the base. And this is why I decided to use an approach that takes in account different knowledge systems. One of the ways to understand it is only from science, but once you get into the conversation with local people, you get to understand that people start to act from different perspectives. So one way to get a more enriched picture is to integrate these different knowledges, taking in account that all of them are valid in their own context, and it's going to be difficult to validate them in one single way. Also, standing far from the point of view that everything needs to come to science. What I am proposing is to build a dialogue with at least 3 different stakeholder groups and mobilize the existing knowledge that is there. The first thing I started to do is a sketch of the map of actors that are actually using and somehow modifying the karst, the aquifer, and the underground ecosystems in the city. What I want is to explore that if Cenote cultural services really go further than just for recreation. And also taking into account that the base of the motivation of the people, of the locals, are their material and non-material values are on the base of the motivation that will take them to act or not to act towards the protection. So I'm going to present these three different characteristics that I believe these stakeholders have. The first one is the cenote owners or managers. They are very heterogenic. It's been hard to just categorize them, because here we have a context of communal property where families own a land, and some have the rights over some cenotes, others not. Some owners or managers do want they want to talk with you and share their knowledge, but they don't want to be categorized or involved in a document, especially where their name appears, and this is very sensitive. So I am just passing that step and moving forward. But what I recognize is that they have existing and also very valid knowledge. Most of it based on oral tradition, so we need a lot of time to listen. I have found also that if the cenote owners or managers are centering their activity on tourism, even if they are not located in the big tourist areas, they are a little bit interested in getting involved with scientists, especially if you explain them about projects of I forgot the name, citizen science projects, where students can actually come and show the tourists how to get information, and they see it as a part of the tourist activities they can offer. And especially important for me is to spend time, have time to build the dialogue with them. They don't have the same time as we do scientists have. The connection with them requires a lot of presence on the site, a constant presence, and also very important is the consideration to make, and this is, I take it as our responsibility, to make the timings, their times and my times match, because the times where they need information is not the same time that science takes to build information. And we need to think that the information that is built from the science, not all of it is going to be useful for the owners or managers. So we need to find a middle point where to give them information, and in order to really understand what they need, we need to listen and spend time listening. The other group of stakeholders are the cave divers, the explorers. This, as I mentioned, started in the 1980s, but one thing is that many divers are coming into this area to take a job or spending half of the year here, half of the year in their own country. So I have decided to just spend time with the resident cave divers, those that have really built a life in this area and have at least more than 10 years of experience. And I have been interviewing some of them and doing cartography exercises in order to explore their motivations to come, to build a new life here, and how they think they are getting benefits from the underground waters or the underground ecosystem. I recognize that they have very, very funded empirical knowledge that have actually become very important for scientific projects. And in the answers I have received, I put here list 3. One person told me exploration defines me as a person. I can imagine my life right now without the cenotes. It is not the benefit I get from this, it's who I am. And all these 3 people were not Mexicans. They came from different European countries. And lastly, but not less important, is to work with the university students. This group, as I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, we are just starting to have careers related with management, with not hotel management, but ecosystem management, heritage management. So this group, for me, represents the next generation of our citizens, of our decision makers, but also of our local scientists. We need to start building up this base of local scientists that focus on the Karst. And I believe that as a professor, not only engagement is important. I think that's just part of the job we need to do, but we also need to start putting the students into the context of building bridges between different knowledge systems. And this is like a challenge for everybody. And it's good that they start to have this challenge since the moment they are becoming professional. And also taking them into the field to be part of the decision-making processes that we are trying to first understand, and they're trying to propose to the cenote owners and administrators. Finally, this is a project where we are building this cross of knowledge in the case of a natural reserve located in Cancun. This is a state reserve named Laguna Manati. And this is a urban reserve that was established in 1999. And it is representative for its vegetation of wetlands, mangroves, and coastal lagoons. But also it's a very important refuge for different species. In the one of those is the tarpon, which is economically important for the fishery, and also of the crocodile, Morelletti. And last year, it started with the administration calling us to propose a project, or at least make the alliance with cave explorers that were willing to enter a cenote that is located inside of the lagoon, of this lagoon. And we did that. This is a aerial view of the lagoon. We did it last year, and with this, we have been building another relation in between, in this case, a state reserve, the divers, the students that are being participant in the monitoring of the hydrology and the characterization, topography, cartography of the cenote. And we are, with this, we are planning to put in context the role that is inside of and is a reserve. But this can be expanded to the urban cenotes in terms of the connectivity between the inland water bodies and the coastal systems. Local people already understand the importance of the reef for the economy, of the tourism, but we are still lacking understanding about the importance of the water and the connection of the water bodies that are located inland. So understanding this interconnection can make also visible the vulnerabilities and the pathways that the vulnerabilities take in relation to many different topics, including the value that we assign to the services that these ecosystems provide. And lastly, focusing on the hydrology of the urban city of Cancun and demonstrating why these resources cannot be considered isolated. We need to understand them interconnected. I'm talking for the people in terms of how the urban cenotes are connected to their life as a water resource, to their jobs, because the cenotes, they have just two corners from their house are pretty much the same geology formation that they are recommending a tourist that they find in the street to go. And this connection in a spiritual, even in a spiritual way or motivational way, or a way of why they decided to come to live to Cancun and create a life here, can be important in terms of putting in context these water bodies. And thank you very much. I appreciate your attention. I expect you have questions or comments.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions they would like to? I think Daria was asking a little bit about how, some of the, I guess, how the university is working with the, the state reserve or different regulatory bodies in Cancun. Can you make any comment on, how that is, how that's been working out?
Yes, in fact, from the moment that the administration of this particular reserve, state reserve, called for the collaboration of divers. Now there is a group of scientists from other institutions working also with the Universidad del Caribe and with the Cancun administration, the ecology department, not the tourist department, not yet, but I hope they get to join at some point. But now they are doing meetings constantly related on how to recuperate or how to protect these, how to recover, not recuperate, how to recover this urban reserve, because it is really inside of the city. It has been limited by the construction of roads. It has been crossed over, and so the intentions are already set, and different institutions or representatives of different institutions are getting together in order to find ways. But this is only for the lagoon. What I try to focus is that it's not only the lagoon, it's all the water bodies that are just a few blocks away from this lagoon that are not being considered, and that pretty much, I believe, part of the same system, no?
Okay, and I'm kind of got a question too, is how does being an archaeologist really help you when you're carrying out this, this approach to really, hydrologic kind of, and, strongly when you have a lot of, hydrology based questions that you're trying to ask, and really get into, kind of water quality management or, protection, how does that affect or help, what you're doing with this project?
I would say at least in two ways. One, an advantage is to have a topic of conversation with people. People like to talk about archaeology. I think archaeology is an open topic for conversation. And especially with the local administrators, as I mentioned, they have a lot of oral tradition, and it is always there's a connection with archaeology in their legends or in the knowledge that was passed from the father to the grandfather to the father to the son. There is always a topic related with archaeology. So it allows me to go back in time with them in the conversation and focus on the importance of water, especially if we're talking about Cancun. Secondly, is just because in this area, we don't have water running on the surface, it requires to think how the Mayans, at least the Mayans, did to survive in these special conditions. And that makes us try to be creative about how they did it and how did they lasted so long surviving in these conditions, and why are we just doing things in the wrong way in a very few times. So I think that in the case of the cenotes of Cancun, being an archaeologist allows me to open the conversation with the neighbors of a cenote, and most of them have these kind of stories related to figures, ceramics found there. Even in some of them we have found archaeology still in the middle of the city, something I didn't expected to find. So it dates back to the importance of water resources. And then the building of the monitoring is especially what brings us back to today, to make use of the potentialities or the opportunities we have to actually measure the quality of our water, which the Mayans didn't. And we can talk about problems with health that today we can easily, let's put it that way, we can easily surpass, because we have technology to measure water quality. No, so I believe it's a how would you say, it's a tool that it's I don't open the conversation saying I'm an archaeologist, but I have seen that always people tend to go back in history when we are talking of vital resources as water. So it makes the importance clearer.
Well, it sounds like it puts you in a really great position to be doing this work there locally in Cancun. And so this is very interesting to hear about. And so while we are talking about something that's not in a biosphere reserve or region, this is an important issue. And it's, I think I was a little surprised when we started working together about how many, protected areas there are right around the tourist area, like right next to it. And so I was glad to see, like that interest and those aspects of conservation and in this latest project in the lagoon there. I saw a couple people turn their cameras on, wondering if we have any other questions or comments,
Yes.
folks?
May I have a question?
Please, Echo.
Okay, thank you, Leanne. Anna, this nice Cenote that we have also in our area, especially in the very young limestone, the small island. What I want to know is, all the Cenote is a brackish water, or maybe some fresh water and other is saline water?
Yes, in the coastal area that runs from Cancun all the way to the south to Belize, where this whole bush fracture lays that I showed, we have at least a distance of 12, 15 kilometers of fresh water. And then after that, we will start finding the halocline, and we find salty water. In some of them, in a close, maybe are already very deep cenotes with saline water in the bottom. And this has also become an issue that it's being projected that with the change of the sea level, the water intrusion might get to become a problem in some of these cenotes located very close to the coast, to the ocean. Not the same situation is happening in the Yucatan state, which is the one on the west side, where you can actually go really deeper until you find saline water. But in the coastal area of Quintana Roo state, where Cancun is located, we are having this concern about what is going to happen with saltwater intrusion, with ocean acidification, because all our speleothems are based on carbonates. So we can face serious problems on these ecosystems with the intrusion of saline water. But in some of them, at least 10 kilometers from the coast, we already have as a natural process the saline water.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hola, Ana. It's George. It's good to see you. Thank you for your program. I have a question. Is there any work starting to happen about sustainability studies to see how much water is available in the aquifer to support the growing population? Because as you were just saying, you have fresh water on top of brackish or saline water. It's a thin lens of fresh water. It gets thicker as you move inland, but still, how much water is there to support the population in the long term? How much water is going into the aquifer to support that water supply? Is there any work going on along those lines?
Yeah, nice to see you, Dr. George Rennie. Well, as long as I am noticed, there have been modeling of how much water do we have in the peninsula. I think in this sense, Yucatan state has been putting more efforts on doing that because of the quantity of studies that have been taken along the ring of Cenote that I talked first. No? But in the state of Quintana Roo, it seems like not too much effort on finding this, at least on trying to get into a number. I don't know how true this is, but it seems that the water authorities mentioned that we don't have a problem of water, but if you just cross the numbers between population and tourism, it just doesn't make sense that it is going to be like forever. So I believe that there are more like economical interests involved in not putting numbers on. But if we take Yucatan as an example, they have already set a map, at least of vulnerabilities on the availability of water and the land use projection on the state. But Quintana Roo, it's moving very slow on that, on my point of view.
Okay, thank you. And it connects into what you were just talking about with seawater saline intrusion of the aquifer with rising sea levels, because these systems like Sakaktuan and many others will allow fresh seawater to inject itself very rapidly, long distance, many kilometers into the peninsula. So yeah, a model needs to be developed to measure that effect as well on potable drinking water supplies. So thank you very much.
No, thank you, Dr. Benny.
Thank you, everyone. And Ian, Edison, I hope that that last comment and George's question kind of went into a little bit about climate change. We've got 3 minutes. So his question was, how do we see the future considering human-induced climate change? And I think George and her just kind of hit on that with, sea level rising and salt intrusion, and perhaps, the lack of information right now at this time to start addressing, the development for those future conditions. So, Dr. Echo Hariano is our next presenter. We actually had it's a different meeting link because we had different registrations. So I do want to wrap this one up on time. Thank you, everyone, Ian, George, Echo, and Daria and others for your questions. I want to thank you so much for sharing this information today. This is, an important template on how others can go about, perhaps using this bottom-up approach in their communities, and what challenges you found and what things are really working for you. So we look to see how that progresses. Thanks again for everyone for tuning in. We're going to be in our people and culture session here in the next minute. So stay in touch, check out the CaveMAB website, and take care out there.
Thank you. Bye-bye.